Welcome, everyone. My name is Sonali Majumdar, and I'm the Assistant Dean for Professional Development at Princeton's Graduate School. Since 2019, the Graduate School's GradFUTURES Professional Development Program aims to empower our graduate students to succeed in Princeton and create futures that are fully their own. Toward that goal, we routinely tap into our global network of graduate alums to learn more about a range of international career pathways and emerging skills. Today's panel is the first of a series of panels about global careers for researchers, and will focus on facets of science and engineering faculty careers in different parts of the world. On behalf of the graduate school, I'd like to thank all of our grad alum panelists today who are joining us from China, Canada, Switzerland, and the UK. The summer panels will lead to a new professional development series in fall called The Thriving as an International Scientist and Scholar, specifically tailored to the unique needs of international graduate students, and is drawing from my forthcoming book of the same name. It is my pleasure to introduce now today's moderators and GradFUTURES Professional Development Associates, Margarita Belova and Serene Devon. Margarita is a graduate student in electrical computer engineering, and Serene is a graduate student in neuroscience. The moderator section of today's panel will be recorded. We'll stop recording before the audience Q&A begins. With that, I invite Margarita and Serene to kick off today's panel with introducing the panelists. Margarita, you're muted. Serene, you should get off mute too.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. I'm excited to introduce our speakers. Mina Arashlo is an assistant professor at the Cheriton School of Computer Science at University of Waterloo and a Canada Research Chair in Minimizing Human Error in Modern Networks. Before joining Waterloo, she was a presidential postdoctoral fellow at Cornell. She received her PhD in computer science from Princeton under Jennifer Rexford and got her bachelor's from Sharif University of Technology. Her research interests include networked systems with a focus on software-defined networking and programmable data planes. Welcome, Professor Arashlo.
Thank you.
Hang Deng is an assistant professor at the College of Engineering and an adjunct professor at the Institute of Energy and Institute of Carbon Neutrality, Peking University, and an affiliated researcher at the Peking University Erdős Research Institute of Energy. Hank received her bachelor's from Peking University and her PhD from CE department at Princeton. Her research focuses on fundamental multiphysics and multiscale problems that underlie a multitude of applications, including geologic carbon storage, enhanced rock weathering, and enhanced geothermal systems, waste disposal, and contaminant remediation. Welcome, Professor Deng.
Hello, everyone. Thanks.
Safis Pirkol is a mathematician at the University of Waterloo who received tenure early this month. Safis' academic journey includes Germany, bachelor's and master's, the USA, PhD and postdocs, and Canada, tenure track. With a spouse also in math academia, perhaps Safis' most exciting professional achievement is a partial solution to the two-body problem. Welcome, Safia.
Thank you. Hi, everyone.
And I'll hand it over to Serene.
All right, thank you. Let's go. Okay. Mato Bezdek earned his BSc in chemistry from the University of Calgary in 2014, and following this, he pursued graduate studies at Princeton University. For his dissertation, he was awarded the Porter Ogden Jacobus Fellowship, Princeton's top honor for PhD students. After receiving his PhD in June 2019, he joined Professor Timothy Swiger's group at MIT, and following his postdoctoral appointment, he joined ETH Zurich as the tenure-track assistant professor of chemistry in August 2021, where his research group's interests span organometallic chemistry, carbon nanomaterial metal hybrids, and stimuli-responsive materials.
Thanks
Bit
a
of
lot.
a mouthful.
Yeah. No, you got it. It's all good. Thank you. Hi, everyone.
All right. Next up, before joining the University of Oxford, Patrick Robiskini, I'm so sorry if I said your last name wrong, was a lecturer in the computer science department at Yale University and a postdoctoral associate at the Yale Institute for Network Science. He has a PhD in operations research and financial engineering from Princeton University, where he worked on probability theory under the supervision of Ramon van Handel. Thank you for being here with us today.
Thank you so much for this exciting introduction, and it's time to turn over to question. So the first question is, could you walk us through your career journey from graduate school to your current faculty role? What motivation and factors helped in deciding to pursue an academic career in your current country?
Maybe I can tackle that one to start things off. So it was, I guess, relatively recently. So I finished my PhD in 2019 at Princeton. And then I went to do a postdoc at MIT. And then 6 months after joining Tim Swager's lab, COVID hit. And then basically we were shut down, and there was just general, I would say, chaos in on the job market at that time. But so basically, and that's, would be my advice as well, as to, to stay as flexible as you can. And so during that time, there were very few job opportunities, but one of them was the job here at ETH. And so I just decided to apply for it. So I actually have European roots. So I was born in Budapest, in Hungary, but I grew up in Canada. So I kind of have extended family and friends in Europe as well. So that's why it wasn't such a crazy thing to think about. Yeah, and so went for it, and during a little bit after COVID, moved to Switzerland, and then I've been a now tenure track assistant professor for 3.5 years now, and here we are.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody else from our panelists want to take this question?
Well, I can probably share a bit about my experience because it's a bit unconventional. So I started as a postdoc at Berkeley Lab after my graduation in 2015. So actually, I was on the job market in 2017 and 18, and I got lucky and got some offers. But at that point, being in the national laboratory environment, sort of intrigued me. So I was very curious about the career path or career development system in the national laboratory. So I decided to stay in the national laboratory. But after a couple of years, kind of the yearning of working with students came back. So I wanted to come back to the academia. And also because COVID, that has a big role in deciding to go back to China or come back to China because I wanted to be more closer to my family. So that's kind of the primary reason. Another reason is that I did my undergrad at PKU, so I was very attached to this institute. So yeah.
Okay, so we have a couple of COVID-related stories. Anybody else
I'll
wants to
just
take
add
it?
a little bit. I mean, it's actually similar. The COVID side is similar, but that becomes maybe motivation-wise a little bit different after. So I also graduated 2019 from Princeton, and I also started a postdoc. And 6 months after COVID happened, and I stayed in my postdoc for about 3 years, and 2 years in started looking for jobs. So in my case, I think I applied both in the US and in Canada. My husband was already a professor in the US, and I'm very happy at his job. So I think my initial expectation was, hopefully find a position close to where he is and kind of stay. But I did apply to Canadian schools, and I think throughout the interview and then decision-making process, I found the system more, I think the funding system in general, the school, I felt like it's a very supportive and nice environment for especially junior faculty. So I think that particular structure actually was I mean, there were other reasons as well, but I think that was also a big motivation for both of us actually to kind of move to Canada. And I've also been kind of here for about 3 years.
Okay, so we got some nice stories about motivational part of job search abroad, and we have next question about more practical parts. Serene, do you want to?
Oh yeah,
answer?
sure. Okay, let's talk about deadlines. So when do you start an academic job search abroad? When do you start putting together your application package? What does that look like? And what are the kind of like interview norms in different places and how they maybe differ from the US if you also applied here? Anyone can take it.
Yeah, perhaps I can go ahead. So I'm Patrick again here, based in Oxford. So to quickly summarize my track, my trajectory, I spent 3 years of postdoc at Yale, and I was particularly looking at the UK. I'm Italian originally. So before going actually to the full US job market, which I didn't do in the end, there was this position opening up in Oxford. And here the academic market is very different, it's less structured. And particularly Oxford and Cambridge as well, basically they advertise a position when there is a need for it. So the big difference here is that, well, these are collegiate universities where colleges are not just residential colleges like in most US campuses, but they're really places where there is teaching happening. And so as part of my current job, I have a 25% appointment at one of the 39 colleges that are part of the University of Oxford, and I do tutorial teaching for them. And so that meant that basically when someone retired or there was an opening, they advertised the post I applied to. This also means I have two employers, sorry. So the University of Oxford, the Department of Statistics on the one end, and the college, University College Oxford, one of the oldest, in fact, on the other end, meaning that the application, during the application, the interview contained both a research component with a talk, say half an hour, and a teaching component in front of students. I was given the topic a priori, and I was basically asked to come up with a tutorial session of about, again, half an hour.
Cool. Does anyone else have anything to add? Maybe non-UK?
In Canada, I think my experience was very similar to the US. So I'm in mathematics. I don't know if it's different across fields, but in mathematics, the application process felt pretty much exactly the same. Maybe one difference is that I think Waterloo has an explicit procedure for how to deal with dual career couples, whereas I think in the US, as far as I know, this is not formalized and more done case by case.
Yeah, I'll just kind of echo what was said about the UK. I was also on the job market in the US when I applied to ETH, and one of the big differences was that here at ETH we didn't have to prepare a mock lecture, but I remember what kind of surprised me was that on the hiring committee, it was not only faculty from ETH, they actually assembled an international hiring committee. So it really felt like a large peer reviewing effort, which maybe, can be intimidating in some cases. But on that hiring panel were also students, PhD students, and I had a separate interview with them. And they basically just spontaneously, asked me very basic things, in my field in chemistry. So how would you explain this concept to a first year chemist, right? So something very basic. And then on the spot, you have to come up with an explanation. And which I thought, I did appreciate that because teaching is an important part of the job. And so it was nice to see that was taken into consideration as well. But obviously, the rest of it, the proposals, the research, expectations, those are extremely similar to how faculty search runs in the US.
Nice. If anyone has any like last minute things to chime in about like how long it takes to put these kinds of packages together, I imagine they're very lengthy with the whole research statement, teaching statement. If not, we can move on. No one has anything to add.
Yeah, I'd love to hear from Hang if it's okay, just in terms of how the applications work in China.
Oh, okay. Yeah. The application process is pretty similar, the procedure-wise. The only thing is that probably most of the jobs are not advertised on international platforms. So a lot of the local, like the WeChat platform is a very popular one. Just be sure to watch out accordingly the opportunities. And in terms of the interview, mostly this might be different from institute to institute, but in my institute, it's very similar to the US. There's a talk, and then you have one-to-one discussions or conversations with the current faculty members. Yeah. But the application part is a bit different, so just make sure you get the information. Okay, thank you so much. Does anybody else want to add something? If no, I just move to the next question.
Well, I guess nobody's said anything about time as far as I've noticed. In my area, you start jobs in the fall and you apply the fall before that. Usually deadlines are in November and December. This is for North America.
And how long does it take overall? The whole process?
So deadlines are November and December. Interviews will be December and January. And then you will maybe spend some time after getting an offer negotiating. In my case, for example, I had a second visit after getting an offer where they then showed me around and convinced me to come here. And then I think I signed the final offer in March. Is that roughly what you were looking for? I think I started working on my application the summer before because I was also applying for scholarships, fellowships, and those have earlier deadlines. And there's lots of parts. You should make a website, I think. At the job application stage, people will Google you, and so there should be a website, and that takes some time, especially if that's not something that is usually your expertise. And at least math is set up so that application material is very reusable. So that's a nice part. I worked on all the parts of my application, CV, research statement, teaching statement, and tried to optimize them once. And then I sent basically the same package with a different cover letter to 50 different places, which is the norm in math. Math has a central website where jobs are posted for North America, which is very nice. It makes it easy to apply to many places, but it also creates the expectation that everyone will apply to many, many places.
Okay, thank you. That's a really nice remark that you should create your personal website before applying. With that, you just anybody else has any remark? Okay.
Perhaps, yeah, sorry, just on the teaching statement, which is something that it feels very North American as a thing. At least here in the UK, although the job involves teaching, as I said before, it's not, I mean, yeah, you're expected to write something about teaching, but I don't think there is a separate document for it, if I recall correctly. Anyway, I remember taking part in some of these sessions at the McGraw Teaching Center, and that helped me in framing, right, that type of documents. And Alum, even year after, actually, if not for the application itself and landing a job, it was useful context to have that type of exposure. So yeah, you have a lot of resources in Princeton, make good use of them.
Thank you, Patrick. I was wondering the same question about whether all of these different application packages are relevant in the different countries as well, and just as North America.
Okay, nice. So let me proceed to the next question. How is the scientific environment at your university different from that at Princeton or our USA universities? How would you describe the responsibilities and duties involved in your role?
Guess I can start. I guess at least in Canada or my department, it feels very similar to, in general, to what I experienced, both the interview process, which I think other people also mentioned. In terms of the job, the tenure track is really the same. The length is the same. It's a 3-year kind of probationary appointment at the beginning. You get a mid-tenure evaluation, and then you apply in your 5th year. It takes about a year for things to get finalized. So after 6 years, hopefully if everything goes well, you got your tenure. Responsibility is the same. You have your teaching research service. Research is the general theme, which I think is also true of many schools, is in the US, is that the research is mostly what you're going to be evaluated with, but you have to also do a good job at your teaching. And I think service differs from school to school. At least my experience here has been that school has been very careful about reducing service for junior faculty so that they can kind of ramp up and spend time with creating a research group and getting a hang of teaching. So overall, very similar. I think interview process, tenure track so far very similar to what I saw at Princeton.
Okay, thank you. I was wondering if maybe Sophie has something to add, as she's also in Canada.
My impression is also that it's pretty similar. I mean, I have not had a faculty type role in the US, so I can't say for sure, but it feels pretty similar. And somebody, possibly you, Mina, mentioned that early career researchers here have more funding, which is also generally true. There are a lot more funding opportunities for junior researchers, which is, I think, possibly a difference to the US. And my guess is that this would be true across fields and not just in math.
This is very nice to know. Okay, if I have a panelist want to say something.
Yeah, perhaps it is also something Oxford, Cambridge specific, but because these colleges, they are formally charities. And so as a member of a college, as a tutorial fellow, you're also part of the governing body for the charity. So there is all of that legal side of things and admin side of things that is quite unique. And so you need to attend roughly 9 meetings per year. Governing body, you might be in different committees. So there is more admin burden. It comes with some perks and some interesting things that you learn around it. But yeah, it's more work for sure.
Thank you.
Okay. And if there are no other comments in that one, we'll move to our last moderated question before we maybe open it up for some audience Q&A. The last question, not to like make you think about regrets or anything in your life, but maybe you're just thinking back, what do you wish you'd known before you started? Like, would you do anything different? Would you do everything exactly the same? With the benefit of hindsight, what advice, I guess, do you have to give people starting out?
Sounds like a difficult question.
Is this for the job search part or for the
Yeah,
part?
just, well, I guess you could say all of it really, but maybe just the job search part.
I think the job search part, I think I'll echo what was said to be very flexible going into the job market. I think it's you don't know how it goes. I mean, there's something, at least I feel like it's a shared experience across fields, that you feel that there's randomness in paper submission and acceptance processes. There's even a lot more randomness when it comes to faculty searches in terms of what kind of positions are available at different schools. Even if it's a broad area, the specific person they're looking for, it might be a very specific sub area within your field that they might want to strengthen the department. So then there's, the kind of hiring lines they would get from higher ups. There's all sorts of politics, especially being on the other side of it. Not even bad politics in terms of resources and all of that, about how positions are announced and filled, and funding situations can change. So in any case, I think it's really keeping an open mind, starting off with this can go like either way. And I think that, like, in terms of, you might have, I want to have those 5 schools. I think that is very difficult to settle into at the beginning. I think you should just broadly apply and keep an open mind, and you get surprised. It broadens your horizons once you actually go to different schools and talk with different people. It definitely happened for me. And I think the second part it's the advice I got, and I thought it was very good, is whenever I wanted to apply, I would think about, if this is the only offer I get, would I go or not? And I think if the answer was no, I would not apply, because I just thought in terms of the community, there's a lot of effort that goes in from the school in interviewing you. And this is in any case a small community. You wanna be collegial, not really put people through a long process and then say, this is my only offer, but just kidding, I'm not coming, right? So I'd say those would be my two pieces of advice for job search.
Yeah, and I would just add on to that not only flexibility, but also once you are interviewed, right? Still, often places will have sometimes 5 to 10 candidates coming out for one specific position. And even then there are lots of considerations kind of in the background that you're not aware of, that you don't see. And so when you do get a no, it's not necessarily a comment on your abilities. It's just that somebody else was kind of a better fit for the role. It's not that they were kind of better at the job. It's just they were a better fit for what that specific department was looking for at that specific time. So of course, when you're in the process, it's hard to be indifferent to that fact. Of course, you're always disappointed when you get a rejection, but yeah, I think it's important to keep that in mind, that it's not really a comment on your abilities. You just have to keep trying and keep looking, and yeah, just to be as flexible as possible, and trust the process. Yeah, that's an advice I got, which is hard to do when you're in it, but yeah, it's good to keep it in mind.
So it's a little like applying to grad school. Don't get emotionally attached to a place.
Yeah, exactly.
Be willing to pivot.
Exactly. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
If anyone else has anything else to add?
I think when I applied, I was trying to figure things out for myself. And so one thing I would do better is to actually ask for advice, which I guess people who are attending this are already doing at least one step of, so good job. And yeah, ask your supervisors or any colleagues that you trust to both give you advice on the process and review your materials. Because now I often share my application materials with my students and then say, but also I made the mistake of not having any other person read these, so take them with a grain of salt. That is one thing I would do differently for sure.
How do you find people you trust for advice? Are there people like just generally in your department? Do you like have to have specific relationships with like a professor before you go up and be like, help me out?
Good question. I will give advice to anybody who asks me, but it might not be useful to you if you're not in math. But yeah, at least for me, after I applied, I put my materials on my website. precisely so that people have this as a resource. And if you really don't know where to start, that could be a place to look. Not my website specifically, but have people in your field put their materials on their website so you can get some idea of where to start. And then when you get a job, pay it forward.
Thank you so much. So if we have here folks in math and related, you know what to do and where to look for starting materials.
Sorry, just to add on that a little bit. So I think in terms of going through the process, first of all, I would really advise to start it as early as possible. If you know that you want to go into academia, you want to apply for jobs. It's a long process. It takes many iterations to get where you feel comfortable with or ready for submission. And second, in terms of who to ask, I feel like probably as a graduate student, it's helpful to think about identifying and developing mentorship relationships in addition to your advisor. The advisor is definitely the most helpful resource, but there are other people, including other faculties in your department, and also probably other graduate students who've recently gone through this process. Especially like the ones in your department that are 2 or 3 years ahead of you. So those people could be very helpful in terms of helping you go through the process. Yeah, and also kind of specifically, if you're considering applying for jobs in China, it's very institutional specific. So every institute is different. So before apply, I would advise kind of getting as much information as possible. Just talk to whoever you can get to talk to you and try to get information, and also be critical about how you interpret those information. Okay.
Okay, thank you. In fact, we are moving faster than expected, and we have little time left for extra moderated questions. So if somebody wants to add to this one, let me know, otherwise we'll move.
I just wanted to add about getting advice is also, I think adding to the being critical about it is every advice you get, these are all very personal decisions. Of course, there's a professional side to it, which you want to make sure you end up in a good school where you can do the kind of work you want to do. But there's also a lot of personal aspect to it. This is hopefully the place you're going to spend, many, many years, and with the people in that department and, in that particular location. So I think it's good to take advice and definitely kind of get different people's opinions, but kind of pass it through your own filter of preferences and priorities, and all of that, because sometimes you can get very conflicting advice from different people, and each one of them is going to give that from their own personal opinion. There's definitely good pieces of advice in there. You just have to pass it through your own personal priorities.
Okay, thank you. So at 9:45, we are going to move to live Q&A, and before that, we have the last moderated questions. So what are the typical criteria for success, like tenure and promotion for faculty in your institution? Are any metrics for academic success different from those in the USA? And we really appreciate if professors from EU and China could add their remarks, because we have some participants who are wondering about this country specifically.
Yeah, maybe I can start. I think ETH in general is very similar to the US in that respect. At least we have a kind of a guideline for assistant professors, and so a lot of the things that are written in there, I think, were somehow anyway modeled after the US tenure track system. So a tenure track assistant professorship, this is still relatively new, I think, in Europe. certainly the German-speaking world. Just as a bit of a background, historically the system has been that you're kind of hired as a junior professor. So in Germany, they still have kind of junior professors. And then you work within a larger lab and you run a smaller research group within that lab. And then to get promoted, you basically have to move. So each time you're promoted, you move to a new place. But I would say in the last 5 to 10 years, more and more places have adopted the tenure track system, which is an assistant professorship as we know it in the US. And so because of that, it's by definition very similar. I would say one thing I did notice, though, that's quite specific to ETH is that we are 100% public. So it's completely funded by taxpayers. And so there's somehow an unwritten expectation that the research that we do benefits society as a whole. And so it's kind of tech transfer is highly valued. So, you might have projects that may not necessarily get into the fanciest journals, but if they're really applied and maybe you get a patent out of it that benefits society, this is viewed as something extremely valuable. And that's something that ETH values. Now, of course, you're kind of expected to do it all, so you have to do fundamental research as well, but this is something I noticed that's particularly valued here at ETH.
Thank you. Okay, again here.
How about sorry, Hank,
wait.
after you, would love to hear from Patrick as well about Oxford and their criteria of success, but please go on.
Okay, yeah, because China is probably different. A lot of the universities do not have tenure track system. So for the universities that adopt the tenure track system, it's also quite different from institute to institute. The kind of the bad news is that it's very competitive. So we have metrics, but it's not guaranteed that if you meet the metrics regarding like the number of publications and the amount of funding you get, you can get your tenure. So there are more to that. So it's and also it's changing over time because like earlier independent research is emphasized, while nowadays there's a kind of the trend of promoting team science. And also previously the emphasis was primarily on publications. And nowadays there's a trend of more increasingly value the patents and etc. So it's definitely changing quite rapidly over time. So it's I guess the thing is that you have to kind of learn to adjust as you go through the process as well. Yeah. Thank you.
And yeah, I was going to complement what was said before. So Oxford is also a public university. And here in the UK, there is a system whereby every 7 years, it's called REF, universities are ranked based on output. And there are different criteria of output, one of which is impact. So also here, patents or impactful case studies are part of what they value. But otherwise, I feel is perhaps a bit different, unique in the sense given compared to what was said so far. So there aren't that many positions here, mostly because, again, we are confined with the number of students we have based on the colleges. In fact, colleges are the one admitting undergraduates, and that scale somehow give constraint on the amount of faculty that the university can support. So there aren't that many positions, but once you are appointed, there is somewhat expectation that you will pass the probatory stage. So there is a probation of 5 years with a midterm review, but is somewhat rare that someone is kicked out. Something they changed recently as of a couple of years ago, I'm told, is that now they value research, teaching, and admin at the same level when they review cases for permanent posts. so for passing the probation. It used to be that, if you're super strong in research, you could get away with very poor reviews in teaching and not doing much when it comes to admin. They changed that. So you need to be more well-rounded, I guess. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And maybe Safi, if you want to add something on math, because I guess you don't have patent as other speakers noted, what are criteria in mathematics?
As far as I know, there are not very specific cutoffs of this is exactly how many papers you have to get. I think my experience has been pretty similar to what I would expect in the US and in what it sounds like other fields. Then there's research teaching service. Certainly the emphasis is most on research. And as Mina mentioned, Waterloo is good about keeping service obligations of junior people quite low. But they do consider teaching, and one thing that seems nice here is that they actually have peer evaluation of teaching, because as presumably we all know, student teaching evaluations are so full of every imaginable bias. And so it feels quite reasonable to instead have a colleague who's at least aware of these biases come in and look at your teaching and give you advice.
Okay, thank you. All right, we've done with the moderated part of our conversation and transition into a live Q&A. Could you please stop recording?